So my parents are Kashmiri. My father grew up in Srinagar. My mom grew up in New Delhi. The Harvard campus, 1 in 4 students, I think the percentage is higher than 25% now, is Asian American. I think that the best outcome of this case, which is unlikely, is that for Indian Americans, is that the U.S. Supreme Court upholds affirmative action. So affirmative action is a policy in which a selection process pays attention to membership in an underrepresented group. So if we're talking about race-based affirmative action, looking at whether someone is part of a group that is not tends to be underselected, and using that as part of the decision-making process. I think affirmative action is a really important policy in American higher education and American society more broadly, and there's a few reasons for that. The main one that has been kind of upheld in court is that it creates a diverse learning environment, and it makes for diverse leadership. I understand that sort of anxiety around college admissions. I think particularly if you're coming from an immigrant family like I am, it's, there's a feeling of not having as strong a foothold in the country as maybe people who've been here for generations. I think a few things are important to keep in mind. First is that, there are two separate issues. One is this question of, is there discrimination towards Asian Americans? And that is a separate issue from, should there be race-based affirmative action? Now, of course, this is a zero-sum game, right? More seats for one group means less for another. But I think this is an important distinction because this lawsuit is not asking for any remedy to combat any kind of anti-Asian discrimination, if there is any. They're not asking for, anti-bias training, any kind of this, to end that so-called personal rating, if that is an issue. They're not asking for any of that. They're just asking for an end to affirmative action. Case is not about, concern about Asian Americans. And here's why. The man who really, who has funded and who has organized this lawsuit is Edward Blum. Now, Edward Blum, I'll tell you a little bit about his background. He also organized the opposition to the parts of the Voting Rights Act. So I think his whole goal has been throughout his kind of, all this work that he's been doing to end any kind of attention to race in the United States. I think when he lost the Fisher versus Texas case, he thought he could cleverly link this issue of, is there Asian American anti-Asian discrimination to affirmative action? And, there are some Asian Americans who bought his logic. I think that the best outcome of this case, which is unlikely, is that for Indian Americans, is that the U.S. Supreme Court upholds affirmative action. And I say this because I think that Indian Americans, like all Asian Americans and all students on these college campuses, benefit from attending a college campus that is diverse, in which we see representation, in which they are exposed to peers who are from a variety of backgrounds. I think it's important to remember that Asian Americans are very well represented on these campuses. The Harvard campus, 1 in 4 students, I think the percentage is higher than 25% now, is Asian American, and 8% of people in the United States are Asian American.